Pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of each and every one of our hearts here today will please God, who is our rock and our Redeemer. If you've been watching the news, you will notice Iran, the troubling situation in Iran. You've got a nation that's desperately striving for nuclear weapons capabilities. A nation that is unstable within itself, and with a leader whose mental stability is questionable. We have a leader who has been accused of denying the Holocaust, who openly says that the best solution to the Israel-Palestine situation is to wipe Israel off the face of the planet. We have a leader who in 2009 was re-elected to his position under questionable circumstances. So questionable that the people within the nation protested the election. And the United Nations protested and criticized the elections. We have a country that is unstable, who seeks power and for dubious purposes. The man in charge of this country, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, is a fearful prospect in the lives of people in the Middle East and around the world. If you've been following this discussion at all, there's probably times when you wonder what's going on. You wonder, how can this be? Sometimes you may ask yourself, where is God in all of this? I mean, we know that God loves us individually, but is he really into world politics? Is this something that God knows about or cares about? Because sometimes it seems like he's not really paying attention. This may be a question that troubles you. Why does God allow people like Ahmadinejad to remain in power? This same question was a question that the Jews asked 2,600 years ago. 2,600 years ago, in the same place, was a man with an equally difficult name to pronounce, Nebuchadnezzar, who was ruling over not only parts of Iran, but parts of all over the Middle East. Nebuchadnezzar, in his time, was the most powerful king on the entire face of the planet. He had taken his country and expanded it into an empire. He and his father together defeated the Assyrian Empire and took control. They threw off the yoke of that empire and became the leading, dominant world power. Nebuchadnezzar had expanded his territory from Iran to include all of Iraq, Syria, parts of Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, all of Israel and Palestine, parts of Egypt and Saudi Arabia. It was the largest, most powerful empire in the world. They put down Assyria, the empire of Assyria. They put down the empire of Egypt. They defeated all the people that opposed them. Nebuchadnezzar, when his father passed away, consolidated his power. He put down any rivals for the throne, and he quelled any rebellions within his empire. He expanded the borders to the greatest extent that the Babylonian Empire would ever know. He was a powerful, powerful king. Think about it. What would it take for one person to rule over that area today? Think about how contentious that area is. And it was every bit as contentious back then. And one man had the power to rule over it all. But not only was he powerful, but he was brutal. When the Israelite people stood up against Nebuchadnezzar, the Bible records that he came in, conquered the people. He enslaved the people, carried them from their homes, from their homelands, from their hometowns, away into a foreign nation with strange language and strange food, and forced them to live in this way outside of their own territory. But not only that, it records that Nebuchadnezzar tore down the walls of the city. He demolished their temple. He stole the articles of worship to add to his own treasury. He took the king who had dared to stand up to him, and he put out his eyes, and he killed his children. And he put a puppet king in his place that would serve him. This king was the most powerful king on earth, and he was brutal. We're talking about a king without rival. His kingdom was a glorious kingdom. He was powerful and brutal. And the things that he did with his kingdom were amazing. In the ancient world, there are 7 wonders of the world. You've heard about them. Only one of them remains, the pyramids in Egypt. Nebuchadnezzar has the credit, has the honor and prestige of holding the title of having created one of those 7 wonders, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Basically, this king was so wealthy that he created a forest in the middle of the desert. A garden forest in the middle of the desert for his wife, who was homesick for her forested homelands. And he said, "Oh, you miss your home? You don't like the beauty of our desert? Well, here, I will create for you a forest in which to live." This powerful, brutal, ingenious, and creative king, wealthy, is the main character of our story today. And it's into this situation that we pick up with our story. And I'm going to ask that you'll turn with me to Daniel chapter 4. As God has pointed out, it is a long passage, and we're going to be spending a fair amount of time in it. We're going to be reading through it together, and I'm going to be pointing out a few different things. So if you'll turn with me to Daniel chapter 4, you'll find that on page 719 in the Pew Bibles. 720. Daniel chapter 4. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all the peoples, nations, and languages that live throughout the earth, may you have abundant prosperity. The signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me I am pleased to recount. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his sovereignty is from generation to generation. Now this is strange. Think about the picture that I just portrayed for you. Powerful, ruthless, brutal, arrogant. Does this sound like a man that fits that description? May you have abundant prosperity. The signs and wonders of the Most High God has worked. I am pleased to recount for you. How great are his signs? Something's going on here. Something's going on in the heart and mind of this brutal, ruthless, arrogant man that has worked a change. And our story today is going to tell us exactly what's happening. Pick up with verse 4. He tells us, this is what happened to me to make me this way. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living at ease in my home and prospering in my palace. Remember I said that he had quelled all rebellions. He had destroyed those in opposition, had secured his throne. He says, I'm living at ease. Think about what he's looking at. He's standing on his palace. He's looking out over this homemade forest that he himself had built for his wife. The glory, the grandeur, the magnificence of the greatest kingdom on earth, the greatest capital. This is what he's living. This is what he's talking about. I was living at ease in my home and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream that frightened me. When I have dreams, and they're bad dreams, about people that I love, I have to get up and go to that person. If it's Tara, I have to reach out and I have to hug her. If it's Tamsin or Marilla, I have to go into their room. I have to actually hold the person to get rid of the fear, the anxiety, whatever the the thing, the bad dream, whatever it caused me to feel, I have to be in touch, physical contact with that person, and then get the dream out. So sometimes dreams have a very powerful impact on us. And he says, I had a dream. He had a nightmare, basically. But his dream, he didn't completely understand it. It troubled him, but he didn't understand. He said, I saw a dream that frightened me. My fantasies in bed and the visions of my head terrified me. So I made a decree that all the wise men of Babylon should be brought before me in order that they might tell me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, the diviners, they all came in, and I told them the dream, but they could not tell me its interpretation. At last, Daniel came in before me, he who was named Belshazzar, after the name of my God, and who was endowed with the spirit of the holy gods, and I told him the dream. Now, Daniel is the main character that goes throughout the whole book of Daniel, and at one point, Daniel is challenged to do things that go against his faith. And Daniel decides, I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to eat the king's food that's been offered to idols. And God sees Daniel's faithfulness to him, and God blesses Daniel. And he says, Daniel, because you are faithful to me, I will be faithful to you. And he blesses Daniel with divine insight and wisdom and the ability to understand and interpret dreams. So, the king knows this, and he calls Daniel. He says, Daniel, I know that you are endowed with the spirit of the holy gods. He says gods, because the king still at this point believes in multiple gods. He doesn't believe in the one true God. He still believes in multiple gods. He says, I know you're endowed with the spirit of the holy gods. And he says, I told Daniel the dream. O Belshazzar, or Daniel, chief of magicians, because the king doesn't really understand how Daniel works, I know that you are endowed with the spirit of the holy gods, and that no mystery is too difficult for you. Here's the dream that I saw. Tell me its interpretation. Upon my bed, this is what I saw. There was a tree, and it was at the center of the earth, and its height was very great. The tree grew great and strong. Its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the ends of the earth. Its foliage was beautiful, and its fruit was abundant, and it provided food for all. The animals in the field found shade under it. The birds of the air nested in its branches, and from it all living beings were fed. I continued looking in the visions of my head as I lay on the bed, and there was a holy watcher, or a messenger, coming down from heaven. He cried out and said, cut down the tree, chop off its branches, strip its foliage, and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from beneath it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump and its roots in the ground, with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field. Let him be bathed with dew. Did you hear the change there? So far it has been it. But listen. Let him be bathed with the dew of heaven, and let his lot be with the animals of the field and the grass of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a human, and let the mind of an animal be given to him, and let 7 times pass over him. The sentence is rendered by decree of the watchers. The decision is given by order of the holy ones, in order that all who live may know that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdom of mortals. He gives it to whom he will, and he sets over it the lowliest of human beings. This is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, saw. But you, Belshazzar, declare the interpretation, since all the wise men of my kingdom are unable to tell me its interpretation. You are able, however, for you are endowed with the spirit of the holy gods. What a position for Daniel to be in.